Hi everybody. Today we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about elasticity of demand. We're going to be reading section 3.3 from page 63 through 68, and we're going to be answering these 9 reading questions. So let's first start off by talking about elasticity of demand. You can see the definition for it on page 63. It's the degree to which changes in a good's price affect the quantity demanded by consumers. So how much does price affect quantity demanded is basically the question that elasticity of demand asks. Now, businesses want to know this because they want to know if they raise prices, how many consumers are they going to lose? If they lower prices, how many consumers are they going to gain? So because of this, they care about what the elasticity of demand is for a product. Now, there are 2 types of elasticity of demand. You have elastic demand and you have inelastic demand. So we're going to start off with number 2 and talk about elastic demand. So elastic demand, if you look on page 63, the definition is it exists when a small change in a good's price causes a major opposite change in the quantity demanded. Okay, so a small change in a good's price creates a big change in quantity demanded. Price greatly affects quantity demanded. Now there are 3 characteristics of a good with elastic demand. You'll also see those on page 63. They're the bullet points. So the product is not a necessity. Okay, so if a product is not a necessity, if there are readily available substitutes, or the product's cost represents a large portion of a consumer's income, that product is likely to have elastic demand. What are the most important factors of those 2 are the product is not a necessity and there are readily available substitutes. That last bullet point isn't really that essential. When you consider buying a product with elastic demand, if the price of the product goes up, you're probably going to say, well, the price went up, so I'm just not going to buy it, or I'm going to buy something else. And why can you say this? Because the product is not a necessity, and there are readily available substitutes. So you can not buy the product, or you can go ahead and buy something else. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at number 4 here. Some examples of goods with elastic demand. So some examples, there are lots of examples of goods with elastic demand. The book mentions pizza, hamburgers would be another one. Soda, I would think, would be another one. Anything that there are lots of substitutes for it. There's lots of substitutes for pizza and hamburgers and soda. Those kind of things you can just switch to. Like for soda, you can switch to water or Gatorade. Hamburgers, you can switch to some other sort of food. Same thing with pizza. Okay, so when you have lots of different substitutes, if the product is not a necessity, I don't think anybody would say that hamburgers and pizza and soda are necessities, then you have goods with elastic demand. Now let's go to number 5 here. So if we look on page 64, we can see the definition for inelastic demand. Inelastic demand exists when a change in a good's price has little impact on the quantity demanded. So when the price changes, it doesn't affect quantity demanded very much at all. Now let's go on to 6 here. So what are the characteristics of a good with inelastic demand? There's usually 3 characteristics. Number 1, the product is a necessity. And you can see these on page 64. They're the bullet points. Number 2, there are few or no readily available substitutes for the product, or the product's cost represents a small portion of consumers' income. That last qualification, not really important. The first 2 are important. So goods with elastic demand are going to be necessary, and there are not going to be very many substitutes. Okay. When you consider purchasing something, and you consider purchasing a good with inelastic demand, when the price goes up, you're going to say, oh no, the price went up, but I have to buy it anyway. And why do you have to buy it? It's because the product is a necessity, and there are few or no readily available substitutes for the product. So what are some examples for number 7 of goods with inelastic demand? Some examples: gasoline is considered inelastic. If the price of gas goes up, usually people still buy it. I would say medicine is a good example. If you're sick, if the price goes up for the medicine you need, you don't want to stay sick, so you're going to keep buying it. So that's a couple of good examples of goods with inelastic demand. Now, let's take a look graphically at a inelastic demand curve versus an elastic demand curve. So if you look on page 64 in figure 3.4, you'll see where it says elastic demand for pizza. And you can see you have a demand curve D1 there. Now you can see there that the demand curve is very horizontal, and elastic demand curves are going to be very horizontal because a small change in price is going to cause a great change in quantity demanded. Contrast that, if you look on page 65 at figure 3.5, you'll see where it says the inelastic demand for soap, and you have a very vertical demand curve. And that is a characteristic of inelastic demand. Inelastic demand curves are going to be very vertical because a small change in price isn't going to change quantity demanded much at all. All right, now let's go ahead and turn to page 66 there, and we can answer number 9. It says, what is the total revenue test? And if you look at the definition there, it says total revenue, sometimes called total receipts, refers to the total income that a business receives from selling its products. So what businesses can do is they can use this total revenue test to test for the elasticity of demand at certain price levels. So let's go ahead and take a look at figure 3.6 on page 67. You can see here you have movie ticket revenue and demand elasticity. We're going to look at a demand schedule, which says demand elasticity and total revenue. So there, you're looking at the left side of figure 3.6 there. You can see it has price per ticket, it has quantity demand, and it has total revenue. You can see there that the price that this theater probably wants to charge is $4 because they maximize their total revenue there at $120,000. Now we're going to go ahead and plot, what they do is they go ahead and plot those points on page 67 to the right of the actual schedule where it says effect of demand elasticity and total revenue. They plot all those points, and then they draw a smooth curve through them, and you have your demand curve. And what's going to happen here is you're going to see at various parts of the demand curve, you're going to have inelastic and elastic demand. So let's start off by going from A to B. So we're going to the left here, going A to B on that demand curve, to the right on figure 3.6. So there you're going from $3 per ticket to $4 per ticket. Number one, you can see that's a very vertical demand curve, so it's going to be inelastic. If you look on your demand schedule, from $3 to $4, you can see as the price goes up, total revenue is going to go up. That is a characteristic, ladies and gentlemen, of inelastic demand. So both of those things show that as you go from A to B, you're going to have inelastic demand. Now, if you go from B to C, you can see it's a very horizontal demand curve, which indicates that it's elastic. And if you look at the demand schedule there, we're going from $4 to $5. So you can see there as price goes up, total revenue is going down, and that is a characteristic of a good with inelastic demand. At least at that price, you have inelastic demand. So once again, with that total revenue test, the main thing is that businesses can figure out where they should maximize their revenue by figuring out demand elasticities at various prices, and then they can figure out where they can maximize their total revenue there. Okay? So I'm going to have you guys go ahead and bring these the answers to these questions tomorrow, and we'll go ahead and go from there. And I hope you all have a great evening. Bye-bye.